to be a loss of a person. Right now, during this pandemic, we are going through a loss of our everyday way of life. We are dealing with a struggle of something that most of us have never experienced before, where our daily routines have been altered and there's no way for us to change them back to what we're used to. So we're having to adjust, and we're grieving that at the same time, which is increasing what I consider our anxiety. I feel like that fear is coming from anxiety. And in order to, it's really invoking in people this sense of disaster. Even the CDC has done a recent study saying that there's a higher percentage of people who are depressed, who are more sad, who are really more anxious now that we are in this pandemic, because there's not an end in sight. And there's many ways that we can deal with it, but every way is different depending on the person. First, you have to really understand what you are feeling. So for us that haven't lost a person and we're just kind of anxious about it, they've actually kind of deemed the term for it right now that they're calling death awareness or death anxiety. And right now, what that pretty much means is that we're worried about when death is going to come or who it's going to be for next. They say about 33%, according to the CDC, are having these exact same feelings. So the first thing is acknowledging that you are not the only person who is experiencing these feelings. That is a third of everyone is having these feelings with you. And there are ways to deal with this and cope with this, and it depends on where you are. Now, if you've reached the point where you haven't lost someone, there's ways to just cope in general. So there's some suggestions from the CDC, as well as just me working in my professional life. The first thing you want to do is connect with people. People are anxious and fearful that they're going to lose people, so you need to spend that time that you can. And now, social distance, there are so many ways these days to stay connected. We can go old school and go back to writing letters. There's text messages. There's so many video apps. You have Zoom, Google Duo, WhatsApp, FaceTime. Reach out to those loved ones that you have and continue that connection. That is a way to really help you cope, because if you do, God forbid, lose someone that you're close to, you won't feel like, hey, I haven't seen this person in months and now they're gone. Reach out to those people in your life. Invite them. Do things like Zoom calls. You can sign up for a Zoom and do 30 minutes for free. And you can send, a certain amount of people a link. You can attach your whole family that you want to talk to, your friends, anyone like that, and just keep the conversations going. Ask people to share their stories. Now, this can be hit or miss depending on the person. Some people cannot deal with continuously hearing about all the negativity, about all the sadness, about all the loss that is going on right now. But for others, it is comforting. It's comforting to know that you're not alone during this time. It's comforting to know that someone has gone through a similar experience. What I've done in my own personal experience, I lost my grandmother to COVID. And I have connected through Facebook. There are Facebook groups for just about anything that you can think of. There are other people who have gone through it. There's also support groups online. You don't have to physically be around people to get that support that you need right now. And it's very important when you're trying to cope to have a support system. A lot of people say, I don't have anybody, I don't have family, I don't have friends. You can have strangers. And if there's not a group for what you need, you can create one. You can be that start. Someone else is feeling the way that you are feeling, and you can start that and help others as well as helping yourself at the same time. We call those self-help groups. People create them all the time. Do what you need to do to get yourself that sense of comfort. Also, coordinating a day and time where things can come together. Sometimes having a schedule, something to look forward to, can help you cope. And this is all before you lose someone. These are just regular things that you can do to cope in general, because not everyone has experienced that actual physical loss. There are still ways to cope. There are also some things that you can go through when you're having grief. Say that you did lose someone. There's things like creating memories. So there's scrapbooking, collecting those pictures, saving those letters, saving those moments that you guys have been together, the time that you did have with that person to look back on. When you grieve, you're grieving that hope for the future, that life that you expected to have with that person that is no longer in existence. But that doesn't erase the life and the time that you had with that person prior to. So hold on to those memories. Some people do things like plant trees, have ceremonies. I also lost a daughter prior to COVID. And what I do every year is some kind of event where I bring my friends together, whether it's a balloon release, a party on what would have been her birthday, something to keep her memory going for me and to help me remember her in a positive way, not in the way that she was lost. And one of the most important things is ask for help. Reach out to your support system, whether that be someone in your community, your pastor, your friend, your best friend, some people are close to their supervisor. There are people out there. And like I said, there's therapists. It can be someone that you don't know that you can reach out to. The more you hold it in, the more intensified those feelings become. There was something that I wanted to discuss about a little more about anxiety. Okay. So the thing with grief and talking about death in itself is it's a taboo. No one wants to talk about it because they think that it'll somehow bring it to you. You know, everyone has their own little beliefs where they feel like, hey, if I keep mentioning this, then I'm going to speak this into existence. That is not true. The things will happen that are beyond your control, especially with this virus. You never know what you can expect. All you can do is learn how to prepare yourself for if things do happen. And it starts by having the conversation. A lot of people are struggling to have funerals and to really deal with people being sick because the conversations aren't being had. People aren't saying, hey, if this happens to you, what would you like to be done? There needs to be a conversation. The more you get it out, the less anxious you'll feel because you'll feel a little more prepared. You'll be able to say, hey, God forbid this happens. This is what I want, or this is what I know is going to happen. Have something put in place, but first you have to be willing to have that conversation. Dying is a part of human life. It is inevitable. There is no way to avoid death. They haven't created it yet. Who knows with technology? But there is no way to avoid it. But there is a way to prepare yourself as best as you can by having those conversations with your loved ones. Saying, hey, do you have a life insurance policy? How would you like to be buried? If you get sick, who would you like to make those choices for you? So that it takes a lot of that unknown off the table. You never know who's going to be next. You never know what can happen. It is beyond your will. That anxiety that you are creating in yourself is not beneficial. You have to have an open dialogue with those around you in order to be prepared for this. For helping people who have gone through this, the biggest thing that I've noticed and personally experienced is not to minimize the situation, not to use platitudes like, you know, it's God's will and, you know, they're in a better place and things like that. People don't want to hear those kind of things. Not everybody is ready when they lose someone to hear that this was meant to be. Because in your heart and in your mind, I lost someone I loved and I wasn't ready. Those things cause more harm than you expect. The best thing you can do is just listen. Say, hey, how can I be there for you today? Even sometimes saying, are you okay? Of course I'm not okay. I'm not okay. A piece of me is missing. Start with, how are you feeling today and how can I help you? opening that door to listen and really see what that person needs from you instead of just assuming what's the right thing to say, because there is no right thing. For each person, it's going to be something different. All you can do is make yourself available and be supportive.
All right, you finished? Because that was,
yes, ma'am.
that was a lot. I like what you said about the support, but we needed like a support team or a support person, and then also the number one thing that really struck me, because I'm also mindful of that my own self, being the spiritual person I am. A lot of people don't want to hear that cliche, although that is our strength, but the cliche of God's will and all that and stuff. But you just being there, to me, is more than anything. Okay. Thanks very much, Jaleesa.
If you guys need any resources, I would definitely be willing to talk about any apps or, things to help with anxiety and, coping if you'd like.
Right. Thank you very much. All right. We didn't have any questions, so we'll wait. If some questions come in that need to be asked regarding grief, then we'll do that. Our next speaker is Dr. Carla Sapp, and she will be discussing the pandemic stress. Dr. Sapp holds a doctorate of education and is the drug abuse program coordinator at the U.S. Department. What's this? Somebody got some feedback. Okay, there we go. U.S. Department of Justice Federal Bureau of Prisons, as well as owner and licensed professional counselor at U Matter Consulting and Counseling. Dr. Sapp also is a disaster mental health counselor and reconnection workshop facilitator at American Red Cross. Dr. Sapp also, I didn't put it in my notes, but I think she's a little activist because she has done a lot of panel discussions and workshops regarding social injustice. And so, Dr. Sapp, for months we have been locked up. Some have had to cope with new norms, meaning no contact with anyone.
Right.
Can't see our loved ones, lost jobs, can't find a job, having to deal with changes. How do we handle change and not get overwhelmed by the new change? How do we deal with stress of the COVID-19 as well as everything that's going on with social injustice?
So first I want to say thank you, Dr. Hightower, for offering me this opportunity to discuss pandemic stress as well as social injustices and social justice advocacy. I think that Jaleesa touched on something really, really important when she talked about the social distancing and being able to still have that connection with our family, with our friends. I tell people all the time, I'm not a big fan of this whole social distancing term that we use because we can still be social even when we're not in the midst of someone physically. And so I like to consider it to be physical distancing because, as Jaleesa said, we can use Facebook, we can use WhatsApp, we still have the way to communicate via Zoom, things of that nature. And so I think that term social distancing sometimes put a big negative connotation on this whole COVID that we've been experiencing since March, which has definitely impacted how people have been able to move around. What we know about change is that we know that change is a process. It's not an event. And it is very, very uncomfortable because we get set in our ways. We have our normal routines that we start to do. And in March, everything came to a halt for everybody. Our children were sent home from school, not really knowing what's going to happen. And so you had the uncertainty with them. A lot of jobs started to close down and send their workers to the house, started working online. And then from there, people started losing their jobs because if you think about small businesses and family businesses, a lot of them could not afford to continue to pay their staff and or keep their businesses open at that time, which causes a lot of stress for everybody. And so I think that, when we start to talk about that stress, it's an emotional response, but that emotional response is coming from something. And that being the thoughts that we're having about what is taking place, the things that we're seeing happening that completely is beyond our control at this point. And so being able to start to identify those things that could potentially be in our control. And then you not just have COVID, but since we've been home, a lot of us have been watching the news. And so things in the news that are happening, while sometimes we would kind of miss it here and there, it's been right in our face. So it started off with Ahmaud Arbery here in the Brunswick, Georgia area. And I say here because I'm actually from Midway, Georgia, which is about 30 minutes or so from Brunswick. And so the communities are very intertwined with one another. And so it started off with the world finding out about Ahmaud Arbery, and from Ahmaud Arbery and watching that video, to then we got to Breonna Taylor that we found out had happened way before May, but it became knowledgeable to us in May. And then as soon as we're trying to grapple with and try to understand and process Ahmaud, as well as process Breonna, the world watches George Floyd tell police officers he cannot breathe. And to please, allow him to just take his knee off his neck. And we watched him for 8 minutes and 46 seconds struggle, and ultimately being killed. Because it was just that, it was murder. It wasn't nothing more than just murder. And so we've watched all of these things happen, and then we become familiar with all the other people, and it brings up a lot of different things that we've already experienced in our life with Philando Castile, with Sandra Bland, with Trayvon Martin. And at this moment, because we're standing still, it compounds us. And then as Jaleesa was talking about, that grief that's associated, because the reality of it is in this stress, the stress is a result of the grief that we're experiencing that we don't even realize we are experiencing, because we've lost our normalcy. We've lost our livelihoods for a lot of people. We've lost our jobs. We've lost our financial income, our financial source. And for us as Black women, for us, we've lost that feeling of safety for our Black sons, our Black daughters, our Black husbands, our Black fathers, our Black mothers. We've lost that sense of safety. And so all of that adds on to the stress that we're experiencing, which leads us to feeling exhausted. It leaves us feeling completely discontent. It leaves us experiencing feelings of anger. We're irritable. We don't know exactly what to do. So pandemic stress is truly real at this moment, in this time, in our society today.
Right. Thank you. Is that it?
Oh, no, I didn't know if you had another question or not. So, and the other thing, in talking about the social justice piece, and not really knowing exactly what we can do. As Dr. Hajar said, I guess I am kind of the little social activist these days, and have been for quite some time. I don't mind putting myself out there and talking to congressmen and congresswomen and writing letters. And I kind of got in that little thing where I sent a letter. I sent a letter 2 weeks ago, I think it was, maybe a week ago, on HR 945, the Mental Health Improvement Act. And on Thursday, it was actually passed through the Energy and Commerce. And so those things kind of give you some sense of hope, being involved. And advocacy doesn't mean getting out there all the time and marching. It doesn't mean that you have to be on the front lines. Advocacy is simply utilizing your social medias to be able to put out there, things that are happening. I know yesterday I shared back in California, Governor Newsom has just signed a bill into law where those inmates who are currently incarcerated in the California prison system, who are firefighters, could actually, the law kind of paves the way for them to be able to have their records expunged after they are released from prison, and make way for them to actually become firefighters. Something that we automatically sometimes see, where our offender population tends to be the ones who are overlooked and don't have a lot of things that they can gain after being incarcerated. So reentry is very, very important. That's an initiative that I think is amazing, because it opens avenues for incarcerated offenders, giving them hope. And that's part of that whole stress piece, is being able to find that hope, being able to take that moment to just breathe, being able to allow yourself to feel what it is you're feeling and process those things that you are feeling, as Jaleesa said. And not just, in the moment, having that moment to just take that moment to say, you know what, I don't like how this is. And asking yourself, what can you do? we all have a role to play in the betterment of our country, in the betterment of our children's lives, in the betterment of our communities. And, you know, being active in school board meetings, being active in regular community meetings that may be taking place, being able to utilize your social media to bring awareness to certain issues that are very, very important to you. And then there's also a lot of different organizations that kind of offer kind of the advocacy centers where they send out emails, letting you know these are some of the issues that are being talked about in Congress, at the national level, as well as at your local and state level. And they kind of do the work for you. All you have to do is kind of hit the button and send it on. And so it kind of brings up everybody's names, your representatives, your senators. I utilize the Congress app a lot, so I kind of know what is happening, what's into play at that moment, and being able to know what are some of these things that I really want to see Congress work through. Because at the end of the day, Congress works for us. Congress doesn't work for the president. Congress works for you and I. And if you and I don't share our concerns, our issues with Congress, how do we make things better? And so, yes, pandemic stress is real. I do want to encourage you, though, in that being able to find some activities that you are very, very connected to be able to alleviate some of the stress that you're feeling. Turn the TV off. Don't watch the news 24/7, because the news itself will stress you out, because all the news does is show you all the negative, and you may find one positive if you find that positive. So turn the news off. It's okay to be disconnected from the news. It's okay to go outside and garden, or ride your bike, or walk, or talk to your friends about just things that are happening in life. It's okay to write in a journal. It's okay to just spend time by yourself, take a nap, drink you some tea, things of that nature. Calming mechanisms that are very, very important. Yoga is the new thing now. And so being able to utilize yoga for mindfulness, being able to be aware of your surroundings at all times, kind of allow yourself to just have those moments where you just decompress and breathe, and go from there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Sapp. I think the thing that hit me the most was when you talked about change being a process. And so it's uncomfortable. And so, but change is inevitable. And so, and then the other part that I like also, when you talked about the reentry of the offenders, I used to be a parole officer as well, well, not as well, but I used to be a parole officer. And one of the issues that we faced was a lot of the offenders couldn't get food stamps or certain things from the government. And I was looking at the TV, and Snoop Dogg was on there. Snoop Dogg never voted because he thought he couldn't vote because he was an ex-offender.
Exactly.
Now, yes, now he's ramped. He's ready to vote. Now he found out that he can vote. So
yes,
that was very interesting.
And it's very interesting because a lot of people don't realize that. So at the state level, there are some states where you can actually, if you have a state felony, where you can actually go through the process to restore your voting rights. It's different on the federal level. There is a law, there is a bill that's in the play. I don't foresee it making any moves right now. Hakeem Jeffries out of New York is one of the sponsors of that particular bill, and it's the Second Chance Act, where they're talking about restoring voters' rights. I just don't foresee it being a big deal in this particular session. And the reason being is because they passed First Step Act. And for those who aren't familiar with the First Step Act, pretty much with the First Step Act, what happens is that inmates now in the federal system have to be provided certain programming. That programming can assist them in being able to reduce some of their time, but it's more re-entry focused. And so we have what's called the drug abuse programming, where we offer 3 different types of drug programming. One of those programmings allows them to be able to get at least a year off of their sentence. And then we have a lot of education programs and a lot of vocational programs to kind of be able to give them that skill set that they need to be able to transition into the home and utilize them. The problem is that they have to have the jobs, and everybody isn't always so ready to hire an offender. I always tell my offenders, they have to remember when they're going out, they're not that number that they've been assigned. They are a person, and I need them to present themselves as the person that they are. Don't allow their background to limit them. But yes, in the state systems, there are a good bit of state systems that will allow ex-offenders, once they've completed all their time on probation, things of that nature, to restore their voting rights and have that opportunity to have their voice heard.
Dr. Sapp, you have a question in the chat. It was actually my question, so
Okay.
I'll just ask it. So I work in the school system, and you talked about social justice. And so we have students and teachers have one role in their position at work. Students are feeling a certain way. What advice would you share, because they're dealing with COVID, they're all back together, and how do they cope with everything that's going on in our real world and address that at work? I think Jaleesa said a good thing that I hadn't thought about using, that you can just ask some of those, how are you feeling today and how can I help you? And so
that's
if they're
exactly
having those feelings about what's going on in the world and how it impacts them at work, that may be a good question. But Dr. Sapp, in just general, what information or how can we help our students and teachers who can't always share their political, at least employees, their political concerns while on the job?
Service learning. And I think Jaleesa hit the head on the nail when she said being able to talk to the students. Ask them what is going on. Ask them what are some things that they would like to see change, because, you know, believe it or not, our kids are very creative. They are very in tune as to what's going on. They have their own thoughts. And you know, right now, me and my mom was just talking about this last night. Our 9/11 kids are getting ready to start voting, which changes the game, because 9/11 children are voting now. A lot of them voted in their primaries. My daughter being one, she was able to vote in the primary because she turned 18 last year, November. But now she's able to vote in the presidential election, which is going to be huge when you think about the kids who are pre or right at 9/11 being born, post 9/11. That's going to be huge. And so being able to talk to our kids, being able to hear what they have to say, because this is their world and they're the ones who are coming up behind us. So we want to make this world theirs, because that's what we're leaving. We're leaving them with this world, and allowing them to engage in service learning, being able to hear their ideas and implement. How can we implement these ideas as your teacher? So you're not sharing your political beliefs with them. You're not sharing your political thoughts. You're allowing them to take pride and take ownership of how they can potentially change the world, even if it starts at the local level. You know, what are some things that you're noticing that you aren't really, or, you know, how are you feeling about COVID, and what are your thoughts, and what would you like to see done, and encouraging them, utilizing that time. And I think if more students and more schools did service learning and allowed for students to be more involved in making these decisions and doing activities that is creative and allows them to be a part of their community, a part of their world, a part of their government, things of that nature, it'd be so much better, because then they feel that they are connected.
Can you give us an example of service learning? I don't know that term.
Okay, so when you think about service learning, it's kind of them being able to put things into play. And so if the students are saying, you know, we don't feel comfortable, or we see that there are elderly members of our community who are really struggling right now. And, you know, you ask them, well, what would you like to see done for them? Well, we would like to see that there were more food drives for them, things of that nature, having them start to implement that. So having them put that food drive on, having them then take the food, you know, having a place where, you know, okay, we've taken or we've organized this. So it's kind of the organization, it's the advocacy piece too. So it's organization. They start to mobilize, they get things together, then they take it, you know, to those individuals, or they take it to a food bank that can then distribute them. And so different activities like that. And I can send you a link on service learning as well, to just give you some ideas. But it's more about being able to allow them to start to organize, them to start to mobilize and put those ideas into actions for how they're going to make their community better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's thank you, Dr. Sapp. Thank you.
You are welcome.
And so our next panelist will be Dr. Kizzy Patel. She will discuss the pandemic depression. Dr. Kizzy holds a doctorate of education from the Counseling of Psychology program, as well as a master's of counseling Dr. Kizzy is a licensed professional counselor and an owner of Ross Counseling, which is a private practice. Dr. Kizzy, I like to call you Dr. Kizzy. I know your last name is Patel, but I like to call you Dr. Kizzy. Since we have been in quarantine, a number of us have been overeating. We have not been motivated. We have become restless, even feeling hopeless due to society's issues of police injustice and the fear of whether they will find a vaccine for the COVID-19. How can we tell if we are depressed? What are some of the symptoms of depression? And how do we know, or how do we not fall into depression? Wait a minute, I can't hear you. Hold on. Okay.
I was on mute, sorry. I want to just thank you for allowing me to be on this platform. And I also want to thank the two presenters before me. I got a lot of information. So thank you too for sharing your expertise and knowledge on pandemic stress and grief. So I appreciate that information. Just really quick, you may see some visitors in the background. I had to transition location, so I have you may see my cats kind of jumping up here on the background, so you don't have to pay them any attention. I want to first start by saying it's just, this is September, and it's interesting that we're having this panel during this month because this is also Suicide Prevention Month. So it coincides a lot with the topic. So I just wanted to, just make people aware that this is Suicide Prevention Month, and I've been really trying to put a lot of information out there on my social media platforms that I have. Just, how do we begin a conversation about suicide? How do we talk to people? How do we open that door? So just because I think Jaleesa said something earlier in terms of in talking about death, people feel like that's a taboo topic. Suicide is also another topic that people don't discuss and they're not open to talk about. So, those are two very similar taboo topics. So again, I can also put some resources in the chat after this, just some sites that people can go on and things you can share on your social media pages just to kind of get people talking about suicide and preventing suicide. So to answer the questions, I think I'm going to start with the last question, which is how do we, I believe how do we prevent ourselves from becoming depressed or something of that nature? So I want to first state that depression is something that none of us are exempt from. We all can struggle with some type of depression, just like anxiety. And it can come from different things. As we know, we've all been struggling with COVID-19, myself included. I think at the start of it, and I can share my personal experience, at the start of it, I had symptoms of anxiety. And just as Dr. Jaleesa said earlier, that, we were, we didn't know what was happening. Every moment looked different. Our normal life wasn't normal anymore. So, and then paying attention to the news and trying to figure out what you're doing in your household, and being a therapist, also trying to be a safe space for my clients. So it was, pretty challenging. And then I had to find my own routine and my own norm, kind of, keeping in mind with what the world was experiencing. So to answer that question, none of us are exempt from depression or anxiety. It's something that can happen to any of us. There's also another term out there, and I'm sure my mental health people on the call are very familiar with the term of high functioning anxiety and high functioning depression. So those are people that look like all of us. Like, we work, we're productive, we're doing things in our community, we're raising our families, we're supporting, our family members and our students or our clients. And underneath of all of that, we're struggling internally with our own inadequacies and fears and anxieties. And so basically what it looks like is that on the outside, it looks like a well put together woman, right? But internally, we're struggling with some of the same things our clients struggle with. Fear, depression, not able to sleep, not able to eat, all of those things. There's also another term for that, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the superwoman syndrome. It coincides a lot with high functioning anxiety and depression. So this is the woman that looks like she has it all put together. Me, myself, I have been included in that category. Like putting that mask on every day, like I have to keep it together because I have a family to support, I have my clients to support, I have my interns to support, so I have to keep it together, but internally struggling with my own inadequacies and fears. So I say all of that to say, you know, we all can struggle with anxiety and or depression. I know my topic is depression, so I'll stick to that. So how do we know? So again, we all can struggle with it, and the symptoms can vary from mild to moderate to severe. Mm-hmm. Now, when people are experiencing, I guess, moderate to severe depression, that does warrant the cause for maybe a professional assessment or to speak with a professional mental health person or a psychiatrist. I think during this pandemic, many of us did experience some level of depression, be it, you know, not able to sleep at night, not feeling motivated in the morning, and things like that. And sometimes those symptoms can come and go. But people that are really experiencing high levels of depression, these symptoms can last for a long period of time. And that's the difference. Any of us can experience any level of depression. And they're all different depending on our individual makeup. Like what I may experience, you may not. But I think for people who, you know, have these symptoms ongoing all the time, is definitely a cause for them or a reason for them to go and seek some type of professional treatment or discussion with a professional mental health person. So some of the symptoms, and again, these symptoms vary from individual, it even varies from female to male, because men can exhibit symptoms of depression and look totally different than women. So some things you may experience, or someone can experience loss of interest or, you know, pleasure in doing things that you once loved. I think many of us probably tapped into that during this pandemic, not really feeling motivated. I know there were mornings I didn't feel motivated at all to get up and do my supervision with my interns. And I supervised about 8 interns, and their hours started at like 9 in the morning. I was up, you know, meeting with interns until like midday. And there were mornings I just didn't feel like turning on the camera to even do that. So feeling that loss of interest in doing things like work related or even pleasure related. Feeling just down, feeling really, you know, beat down, pretty hopeless, just sad. Like, and some people would describe it as being in a funk, but being in a funk for a long period of time. Typically, and I'll just throw this out here while I'm going through the symptoms. When someone goes into a doctor's office, be it a psychiatrist or a social worker or a therapist's office, they'll ask you about, you know, how long the symptoms have been occurring, and anything longer than 2 weeks is definitely like a red flag for people to definitely seek treatment. Mm-hmm. Again, we can all experience these symptoms. They can come and go. I mean, just give an example. Will somebody be sad if they lose their job? Yes. I think all of us on this call will be upset or sad if we lost our jobs, or if we lost something we love doing. But these are people who it's long term. Like there's no, I'm sad today, or maybe for a few days, and then by the end of the week, I'm okay. Trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. So I've had clients talk about just insomnia, not being able to stay asleep at all, waking up in the middle of the night, having racing thoughts, just kind of laying in bed, just having all these thoughts flood my mind, feeling really tired, not having energy, appetite. I think that was one of the questions, having poor appetite. So either overeating or not eating at all. And which, of course, you're going to see difference in your weight. Just feeling pretty bad about yourself, beating yourself up, feeling pretty bad, being really critical of yourself, having difficulty concentrating, so having those racing thoughts, not able to focus on anything, and thoughts of death. And that brings us to the taboo topic of suicide. So people who experience severe depression oftentimes will have those, we call it in a clinical setting, many times fleeting thoughts of death. So they may say things like, you know, they may not come out and say, I want to kill myself. They may say things like, well, my life might be better, my family's life might be better if I wasn't here. So things like that we need to be mindful of and watch out for. Mm-hmm. In terms of coping, I know that was kind of added into that question. I know Jaleesa and Dr. Sapp kind of talked a lot about that, and our comments are probably going to overlap. So I'm probably going to overlap with some of the things that they said, because those topics are very similar: grief, stress, and depression. So one thing I've been telling my clients to do during this time is just staying connected. Staying connected, like Dr. Sapp said, we don't have to be socially distant, it's physical distance. So we can find healthier ways to connect with our family members and loved ones. I know during the pandemic time, it's been really creative, like with the Zoom meetings and the Zoom happy hours. When people graduating and having birthday parties, like the drive-by, drive in a car and wave and have the balloons and all of that. I did a Zoom birthday party for my daughter when she turned 17 in April. So just finding ways to connect with family members and friends. So, calling people, texting people, FaceTime. I think that's the beauty of 2020, is that we have so many means to connect with people just because of technology. So we have the Google Hangouts, we have FaceTime, we have texting, so we don't have to just pick up the phone and call like we did back in the day. We can actually talk to our loved ones and actually see them at the same time. Journaling is actually a great activity. I've actually found myself engaging in more journaling and encouraging my family members and friends. Let's go to the dollar store, pick up a book and just journal. Maybe journal about what you're experiencing right now. And then, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you can pick that journal back up and reflect back on that time that, what we were experiencing right then. It could even be like a scrapbook activity where you kind of just, gathering things that are going on in the world right now, and then kind of put that stuff together and then reflect back on that in 5-10 years from now. So journaling is an excellent source of excellent activity, because we also get to flush out what we're feeling. I tell clients all the time, like, I know you may not like to talk about what you're feeling verbally, but writing is a great way to flush out those thoughts. And so journaling is an excellent activity. Trying to keep up with social activities. So that kind of again goes back to staying connected with your family and friends. I try to encourage people during this time to, I know we have this new normal. So try to maintain some of your old habits. For example, and I'll use myself as an example. So the gyms were closed. I love working out. That's my source of relief. That's my stress reliever. That kind of gets me through my day. So when the gyms were open, I would go at 5 in the morning because my evenings are so packed. So I would go at 5 in the morning, work out from 5 to 6, come home, shower, and get ready for my day. So everything had to change. The gyms were closed. So what a group of friends and I started doing, we started doing the Zoom meetings. So we got up in the morning, same time, logged on to Zoom, planned a workout, did our workout from 5 to 6, like if we were going to the gym, and then go on with our day. So even though I had to adjust like the physical location, like I'm not getting in my car, and actually I enjoy working out at home more, because all I have to do is throw my clothes on, run down to the basement and work out, as opposed to getting in my car, driving to the gym, clocking in and all of that. So that actually helped, a lot. So I encourage people just try to keep up with some of your old routines, even in the midst of all of this, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy, given the changing things that are going on. Something that I didn't, well, this is a topic that I know is kind of new also for some people, caring for a pet. I never thought, in terms of working with clients, like how that could be so beneficial. Like I give out all the other techniques, journaling, exercising, eating well, but caring for a pet, I think that people feel a sense of pride. It gives them a sense of joy. It gives them a sense of being needed when you care for a pet. I have 2 cats that I care for, and I'm sure many of you might have pets in your home, but if you work with clients or you have family members, maybe encourage them to don't adopt a cat or a dog. It gives them a sense of again being needed. So I think that's an excellent way of coping as well. And if you're not into dogs and cats, maybe a goldfish or something like that. But something where you feel like you can connect with. And a pet is actually a great companion, a source of companionship. Volunteering. I know somebody talked about this volunteering. Dr. Sapp talked about that. So getting yourself involved in a volunteering activity. It could be even volunteering at a local pet shelter or animal shelter. Asking your loved ones to check in with you or checking in on your loved ones. So just sending out, pick up the phone and call and see how people are doing. I did that during the pandemic, just reaching out to people I hadn't spoke to in a while and say, hey, how are things going? How are you dealing with this? How are you managing this? And I got a lot of responses back. I mean, people were actually glad, like some friends of mine that I hadn't spoken with in a while, they were actually just relieved that, wow, somebody actually thought about me and somebody actually picked the phone or text me and say, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? How are you and your family doing during this time? So just checking on people, going for a nature walk, going for a walk, working out, planning dinner dates. Somebody I was talking to said they even planned like a Zoom dinner date with their family members. So they had, the dining room table set all up and they had their family members on a Zoom call and they planned like a date that way. So I thought that was actually pretty creative. And then of course, confiding in, your loved ones, your clergy members, your teachers, your mentors, people that you are connected to, people that care about you, people that you care about, and of course, seeking professional help if need be.
Right.
And I think that brings me to the end of it.
All right. I want to thank you, Dr. Kizzy. Two things that I heard what you said is about the superwoman. And, I agree with that. A lot of times we wear masks, and because we have so many duties, we'll put the mask on and just keep it moving and not knowing what's going on in the inside. No one knows. So I like that part. Then I like the part about the pets, because my son, he had 2 dogs here, and then he moved in his own apartment and family. And so he came and got the dogs, and he said that he was going to take the dogs from me. Well, me and the dogs and my husband, we good. And when he took the dogs, and he said he was going to keep them and for, permanent, but he ended up bringing them back. But the first week, I'm like, where are my dogs? And those are his dogs. So those dogs were companions for me, because my husband worked nights, and he did work nights. But yeah, so that was great. All right, let's move on. I just thought I'd share that about the pets. Our next speaker will be Mrs. Jayla Robinson. And she will be discussing the pandemic hustler. And again, I use that word hustler because, again, we have so many duties and juggling things. And so Jayla is a licensed professional counselor and a co-founder of Abundant Life Counseling Services. Jayla is married and has a son. Jayla, my question for you is, due to us as women juggling everything and handling many tasks, during this pandemic, as a matter of fact, the bar has raised during the pandemic. What would you say, let's see, how would you handle making decisions and sending our children back to school or to keep them at home? Now, I know this is a tough question, but I just wanted to get your point of view, especially when there's no vaccine. And what are some ways we can self-care, which Dr. Kizzy really gave us a whole lot of things. So just whatever you want to say.
Absolutely. Well, good morning again, everybody. And Dr. Kizzy, thank you so much. I felt like I had to really nod my head in your amen corner in regards to Superwoman Complex, because that was actually a valid point I was actually going to make in discussing the pandemic hustler. So I think to kind of get us started, I am going to address those questions. And if for some reason I get off task, you all rein me in. But in preparation for this particular presentation, I came across something in my social media feed that really kind of, I think, speaks to a little bit of what you all were discussing. So a former classmate of mine actually posted this, a while back, but like I said, it was relevant, so I kind of kept it. It says, as a mom, you are permitted to be ambitious. I have to remind myself of this sometimes. Superwoman is a fictitious character, but you are indeed quite phenomenal. I spent the past 30 days working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, while covering my workload for my regular job as a public health advisor and serving as a team lead for an operations unit on COVID-19 response. I just extended my deployment for another 30 days. In 20 days, I will be one of 10 individuals selected in a 2020 cohort to begin working on a doctorate in public health at Georgia State University. In 17 days, I will begin homeschooling 3 children, in 3 different grade levels, while chasing my rambunctious toddler throughout the house, while likely simultaneously leading one of my many conference calls throughout the day. I say all this just to say that I think I deserve these Chanel earrings I just ordered for myself. #mom life. So that last little part was kind of comical. But when I thought about the topic of a pandemic hustle, I said, well, you know what, that's actually an interesting concept to kind of put the two together. You know, what is a hustler? And the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines hustler as an aggressively enterprising person, a go-getter. Yeah. And when I thought about us as women, especially as Black women, many of us have either been reared by, brought up by, or expected to be the proverbial superwoman. There is a real expectation for us to be able to kind of be it all and do it all for all people. On a regular day, we are wives, mothers, daughters, granddaughters, in-laws, outlaws, sisters, aunts, friends, spiritual leaders, breadwinners, entrepreneurs, employees. On top of all of that, now we are educators. We are making serious health decisions for not only our personal safety, but that of our children as well. We are expected to kind of intuitively know how to kind of step in and know what to do in times that we have already identified as being unprecedented. I do feel that as we are in this process of juggling, it's easy for us to just make it about the go, go, go mode. So many of us are undeniably living in what I would just say is a survival mode. We're just trying to literally hunker down and get through the day. Is everybody alive? No one's bleeding. Nothing's on fire. We're good. And I think that when you're in those situations, trying so hard to do it and make it look effortless, because as Dr. Kizzy kind of previously mentioning, you backed her up, Dr. Hightower, we have a sense of kind of looking around and assuming that everyone else is doing it perfectly, so we should too. We don't let people know that we're actually secretly and silently struggling, and it leads us to feel more isolated and inadequate, but we just fake it better. So I think in a lot of cases, we are kind of cracking under the pressure of, what do I do when I can say that I honestly have no real rubric, roadmap? There's no book, there's no direction on how do you handle being a mom, being a wife, being a person, being a boss, being all of our 1,000 different titles, and all the while dealing with a invisible enemy that, you know, of course, through our news broadcasts, etc., we are kind of encouraged to always be on guard of the invisible threat, because fear, right? The propaganda of fear, it's good for ratings. It's good for kind of keeping people on guard and making us even more so controllable. When you ask the question, then as a mother, as a person, you know, how do you then decide what to do when it comes down to, do I send my children to school? Do I, on top of my 1,000 roles, now become a teacher on top of all of that? And, you know, should I, shouldn't I, et cetera? And I really feel that there's no one size fits all approach. Everyone has unique circumstances. Everyone has a different degree of skill set. And I think that for each individual, your primary goal is to do the best that you can for your family, for your children, et cetera. I have, you know, friends, associates that are on both sides of the debate in regards to, am I going to keep my kids at home, my children at home, or am I going to go ahead and send them to school in the midst of this pandemic that is taking lives, claiming lives, and there is no vaccine in sight. I feel that each person has to kind of consider what their own circumstances are. I have people, like I said before, that have the benefit, the luxury, even the privilege of being able to have their job convert to where they actually can work remotely. And on top of their very, very full plates, they assume that the peace of mind of knowing that I can control this environment is worth me adding on one more role, one more layer, one more responsibility to my already very full plate. But then I have other people in my life, myself included, that literally have to show up at a job so that we can keep the lights on and we can contribute to our families, to our households, et cetera. And what do we do if we don't have the ability to stay home and we can't leave minors at home unmonitored? We don't have the family support that people can kind of swoop in and say, keep them at the house and then I will help you. I don't live in a multi-generational home. What then do I do? And I think that just like I mentioned before, there is no one size fits all approach. There is no there's no roadmap or rubric for how you do this thing well. I think that what you do is you seek out the best responses and the best decisions that coincide with what your unique situation is. And you don't get into this mode of, well, am I a bad mother? Am I an irresponsible parent because I'm seemingly putting my children in harm's way? I have to work, but I want them to be safe. But I and all the infinite buts. I do believe that during this time, as we are battling almost like the instinct to be super women, I think we have to kind of get beyond the comparison trap. We have to get beyond the process of looking across the fence and seeing what she's doing or he's doing or they're doing it and thinking that, how do I seemingly measure up, or how am I seemingly not enough? And kind of get beyond that. I think that those are some of the other contributors that lead to some of the things that were alluded to before, which is the stress, the depression, the sense of worthlessness, the almost analysis paralysis that comes from just observing situations and feeling just infinitely hopeless. So I hope that kind of answered that initial question, which is definitely that there is no easy answer. There is no one size fits all approach. I think that the best thing that we can do when we have to live life in the midst of a pandemic is take every preventative action that we can. What are the things that we can do? Control the controllables. Well, if I have to go out into this environment, well, then am I monitoring, or am I making sure that I'm keeping my physical distance from people? Am I masking up? Am I washing my hands regularly? Am I keeping my hands off my face? Am I sanitizing my environment? Am I doing all of those things that are within my power to do to keep myself and my loved ones safe? Am I also advising my children of the same? Am I telling them kind of what we're facing? Am I saying this is why we wear these masks? Am I making sure they have sanitizer? Am I doing as much as I can to prepare them for times that none of us could really be prepared for? Our life just kind of got thrown into a screeching halt back in March, and we're all now just kind of grasping at straws, just trying to navigate it as best we can. Yeah. Which then I think brings us to the secondary question, which has to do with our self-care. And allow me to kind of begin by saying that self-care is not something that we do well. I think that too often we hear self-care and we think self-indulgence. We hear self-care and we think selfish. We hear self-care and we think, well, you know what, because we have these different things that we almost wear like badges of honor when we say things like, well, it doesn't matter, if I look a mess, or if I don't take care of me, as long as my children are fine and my husband's okay, then I'm good. And it's like, well, are you good? Because the truth of the matter is you cannot pour from an empty vessel. I have to remind myself at all points in times that as someone who is a clinician, but I'm also, I have another job that I do where I'm doing case management for soldiers. I am a wife. I am a mom. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. I'm all these things. I hold space for so many people. I have to remind myself that you cannot show up for them if you don't first show up for yourself. And so I think that as it relates to self-care, we have to kind of get beyond this idea that I'm good, and be able to remember, no, I've got to first attend to the source. I can't give what I don't have. So I have to first take care of me. And what does that mean to take care of myself? Just like the first question, this is an individualized response. Everybody's sense of self-care is going to be different because all of us have different hobbies, different interests, different needs. Self-care is anything you do that is taking care of you. It could be as simple as getting up 30 minutes before the house gets up, getting up before your children wake up, getting up before your spouse gets up. And it's you being able to kind of go and take that extra long shower, using that, body wash, that soap, that lotion, that perfume, that whatever this feels like silk on your skin. It could be taking that quiet time in the morning to listen to something encouraging, motivational, inspirational, positive. Self-care could also be what you don't do. Meaning I protect my peace at all costs. So what does that mean? I'm not going to check my phone first thing in the morning and see about the bomb that went off in Iran, or the next, unarmed Black man who was gunned down for nothing. I'm not going to let before I open my eyes, I'm not going to be inundated with things that make me go into my reality already anxious, fearful, uncertain, and overwhelmed. So I definitely agree with Dr. Kizzy and with Dr. Sapp when they said, cut off the news. Sometimes, being able to say, I'm not going to look at that because it has no real new information for me. And whatever information that there's going to be coming through, it's not going to be anything basically positive. It's going to be a bunch of negative stuff. So I think that being able to kind of get back in touch with yourself and figuring out, what are those things that make me feel good? Is it, and it could be small. It could be taking time out and saying, I need some me time. You have the benefit of having support at home, being able to say, I need 20 minutes just to myself. And I just want to sit still, breathe and be. I'm just going to drink my coffee. I'm just going to drink my tea. I'm just going to sit in quiet tranquility, looking out the window and just observing the beauty of, God's earth. Whatever those things are that kind of ground me. Journaling is another act of self-care, being able to kind of like emotionally purge. But I'm also a big believer in allowing other people to kind of emotionally support and undergird you. That people in our lives are very, very willing to help us share the load. And I think that when you practice so hard to act like a superwoman, then you sit back here and people don't really know how to help you because you look like you've always got it together. But being able to say, you know what, I'm literally doing the best I can. Today was not a great day. This didn't go right. I'm really struggling with this. And people are like, you know what, me too. And just being able to hear that I'm not alone can bring about so much emotional comfort and peace. It's just knowing that, you know what, I don't care how they make it look on Facebook. No one's got it all together. Right. No one's flawless and perfect. No one gets it right every day, all the time. And I shouldn't expect myself to be that either. It is a useful one. I heard Dr. Kizzy mention about working out. Just knowing you're doing something good for yourself and seeing yourself as being worth that. I'm worth taking the 30 minutes. I'm worth taking the hour. I'm worth taking the 20 minutes. If that's your reality, I'm worth taking the time to do something that's going to solely benefit myself. I'm not going to eat my food on the run. I'm going to stop. I'm going to taste my food. I'm going to enjoy that process. That's an act of self-care. It doesn't have to be anything ultra elaborate. For some people, I'm going to get my hair done, my nails done. I'm going to go to a spa day. If that's your thing, then that's your thing. But I also want people to know you can begin right where you are. I'm going to read this book. And you know what? It has nothing to do with it's a fiction. It's imaginary. It's just something that I like. It's not like, I've got to be serving this end for me to feel as though I'm allowed to do it. It has to be something related to my career for me to feel as though I'm allowed to do this. Just knowing that I can because I want to. I'm going to watch this a silly TV show that just makes me laugh because it brings me a moment of joy and peace. And you know what, right now in this world, as things are going, we need moments of joy and peace, and allowing ourselves that is another essential. So I think that's pretty much all that I have, unless there are some pressing questions in regards to the pandemic hustler. I mean, there's a lot more I guess I could say, but want to definitely stay on task.
All right, you did enough. I like the part where you said control the controllable, and then not holding space for others when you haven't even taken care of yourself. And so that right there was great for me. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Jayla. And so our last speaker is Ms. Wendy Lewis Armstrong, and she will discuss the Millennium Servant leader during this pandemic. Wendy is a CPA. Wendy serves as a director of internal audit for Noble Corporation, a leading offshore driller. Wendy serves as a financial vice president of the Junior League of Houston. Wendy is also serving on 2 board committees, Educational Contribution Review Committee and Budget Committee. Wendy, as a millennial in this society, knowing there is no vaccine at this point for the COVID-19, How do you stay grounded and not become, so I'm gonna just do it like that, selfish, because a lot of our millennials have become selfish in going out, doing what they shouldn't be doing, and frustrated and being locked up for months. And then here's another question. How do you avoid the temptation of the desire to hang out with our friends? Well, I kind of had like a whole lot of questions. You answer whichever one you want. Here's another one. How do you become or remain a servant leader in this country? Now, this is the main one. In this country, knowing that you are the future of this country and your actions will determine the next generation during the COVID pandemic and with this social injustice. Halfway.
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with such a beautiful group of women. Whenever I get the opportunity to speak with African American women, it just warms my soul. I hate that I'm last because I don't know if I have any amazing words to top off what all the other ladies have said, because everyone has already presented such valuable and awesome information for us today. I do have to say, I appreciate being termed a millennial. I don't know how close I am to the millennial age group. I'm on the upper end of the millennial group, so I don't quite relate to everything that the millennials are doing out there. Okay. But I would do my best to speak on behalf of my part of the millennial group, which is the upper end, the ones close to the 40 range.
Okay, the X. I think it's the X.
Yeah, well, no, I'm still technically a millennial. We have, I think there's another term that they started using for us that are the older millennials, but technically we're in the years for millennials. So I do accept the title, okay. But not quite the same mindset as some of the others out there.
All right, do your best.
So, yes. So, like September 11th, we will all probably remember the day or the moment that the quarantine of 2020 impacted us. That day is more than likely different for everyone. For me, it was March 11th. I had the honor of serving as the chairman of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo's Black Heritage Committee. This was my third and final year in the position. I was super excited. So many things going on this year. I've worked so hard. My team had worked so hard. And so we were in 2020, which we called it the year of vision, the year we were going to close out with a bang. Everything was going to be amazing. For Black Heritage Day, we had an amazing performer, Lizzo, who was going to be on the stage. We had sold out in less than 11 minutes. I mean, we were on cloud 9. We were super excited about this day. So on March 11th, my team, we went to speak with or be on Great Day Houston with Deborah Duncan. So we were on the show. We were promoting Black Heritage Day, explaining how it's important for people to support Black Heritage Day because it's the only day the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo really focuses on the African American impact of for the cowboys and the community and the Western heritage aspect that we are very, very, very prominent in, but because the rodeo is a majority of white, Caucasian community, we don't get as much love. So we get one good day where we come in and we show ourselves out. Well, we just left Deborah Duncan. A lot of us, like I said, we're on cloud 9, so we were super excited. Our adrenaline was pretty high. We were pumped up. So we didn't want to go back to work. We didn't want to have to go and settle down for the day. So we said, okay, well, let's go have a drink and let's go eat lunch and enjoy life, right? We walk into Bayou City lunch for lunch. And as soon as we walk in, all the TVs in the bar area are set on the news. Breaking news. The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is shutting down. Our hearts all sank. We didn't know for sure. They didn't have the press conference yet, but it was a little scroll running across the bottom of ABC 13 and Channel 11. And for those of you who are not from Houston, you don't understand how big and how severe this impact was for us. The rodeo is the city's major event. We bring $41 million to the city of Houston in a 3-week event. We were only in second week of this event, and we knew that coronavirus was happening. I mean, obviously we weren't oblivious to the coronavirus, but it was still relatively new and people weren't quite as scared in the Houston area. So we were kind of living our normal lives. But on March 11th, when the rodeo shut down, pretty much the city started shutting down. So that day, I will never forget. Whew, sorry, it brings back a little bit of emotion even to this point, because I was extremely excited about my last day, my last time to celebrate Black Heritage Day. But regardless, as a leader in the community and a leader for the rodeo, I had to do my part. I had to step up, support the city, support the rodeo, and continue to encourage my committee and my team to be advocates for the rodeo and for the city of Houston. That's a struggle. So we stepped in and did some of the things that the ladies have already mentioned. We started doing weekly Zoom happy hours. That was kind of our way to just decompress and still stay connected, because we are a very social organization. And not having that social aspect, or having that social aspect pretty much ripped from us in a matter of seconds. It wasn't like we had a die down moment. It was literally just ripped from us. They closed the rodeo down and immediately asked everybody to leave the grounds and lock the doors and start shutting everything down, taking down all the carnival items and taking away the animals and all of the things that we love so dearly here in Houston. So to the first question of the many questions that I've been asked to answer here, as a millennial in society, how do we stay grounded? So regarding staying grounded, I think it all just depends on what you define as staying grounded. I think we have to shift our thoughts and our mindset around what it means to be grounded. And I think the ladies have already shared a lot on this, but I can only speak for me. For me, grounded now means being able to wake up every day. It means opening my eyes and welcoming a brand new day. For me, being grounded means that I don't feel shamed if I have to cry. I don't feel shamed if I have anxiety. To me, that's being grounded, which is a new normal, because that wasn't grounded before, as you say, the Superwoman complex and things of that nature. So at first, it was definitely a real struggle. I mean, I'm sure everybody can imagine, everybody remembers the beginning of the quarantine and how difficult it was to adjust to being at home and not being able to touch and feel and hug and love on each other, especially as we deal with death and deal with babies and deal with all these things and life moments that we're used to being able to be around each other and have that energy and the body contact that really helps us survive. So for me, I had to start walking, which is totally new. Exercise is not in my definition of things to do for the day. But I would get up every day and I would take my little dog and we would go for a daily walk just to kind of get some fresh air and just woo-sigh for a moment and thank God for another beautiful day. That was my personal alone time, as someone else said earlier, of course, with my coffee in hand, but just a leisure walk, not a walk for exercise, although it is exercise, but just a walk to just maintain my sanity, to breathe in fresh air, to see light. I would also get in my car and just drive. Just drive. Nowhere to go. I wasn't using gas to go to work. I wasn't using gas to go to my many activities. My mileage had, really dropped down a lot on my vehicle. So I would just get in the car and get on 610, which is a loop here in Houston, and I would just drive and just look at nature and look at what God has done and what God has blessed us with. It gave me that opportunity, because usually we're in a day-to-day hustle. We're on the grind. We're constantly moving. We don't pay attention to the things happening around us all the time. You don't see the tree that sits to the left of you every time you're at that stop sign, or the beautiful artwork that someone has taken time to develop and design on a building next to you, because you just zoom, you're going right past it because I got to get to this meeting, or I've got to get to work, I'm running behind, I'm 5 minutes before I have to be somewhere. Now you have a chance to actually take it all in. So I tried that. I did that. That was my mental sanity check, my break for the day. It was to just be able to take in and admire my hometown. I also have the privilege of having so many beautiful girlfriends, and a group of girlfriends decided to do a 21-day meditation challenge. I recommend it. I will tell you honestly, I did not do all 21 days. I try to do things like you know, as we're told, but I couldn't make it all 21 days. But the days that I did do it, I did reap the benefit. We just spent 20 minutes a day listening to meditation music and just breathing in and trying to center ourselves. And then we also had to spend some time, as someone said earlier, journaling. But the journaling was very targeted. So we had something to focus on each day. So for example, one day we had to focus on 50 women or 50 people that have impacted your life. You think it's really simple. Okay, 50 women, start naming them. My mom, my grandma, my friend, this, da da da. But after you start writing names, you get to number 25 and you're like, hold on, who's number 26? So it causes you to actually focus on something and to think and to step out of your normal routine of, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in this house. Oh my gosh, the dog won't stop barking. I don't have children, but oh my gosh, the child won't stop screaming or hollering or crying or having to take care of all these things that we have to take care of in life. So I definitely encourage everyone to do that. If you can stick out for the 21 days, I promised my girlfriends I was going to finish the 21 days. It might take me 365 days, but I am going to finish those 21 days.
All right.
The next question is, how do you avoid temptation or the desire of hanging out with your friends? I guess, again, this kind of goes to the beginning point that I don't really consider myself to be the typical millennial because I'm not on the lower, the younger demographic of it. So for me, it doesn't take much. I mean, the fear alone of coronavirus is enough for me to stay my happy self right here in this house. So I've just done, as we've all said before, I've been able to adjust to this new norm and enjoying seeing faces like this and feeling like I'm actually getting the vibes of the other ladies on the Zoom and getting the things that we need to have that social interaction. You will not catch Wendy on a pontoon boat tied to 5 other pontoon boats back to back with 50 other people. That's just not me. I have that fear factor strong, and I'm not trying to do that. Now, for those who are doing it, I understand, you know, that they have this feel or this need to be connected. We all do. But they also have this, unlike Superwoman complex, I guess it's more of a Superman complex, that the coronavirus hit them and they won't be impacted as severely. So who cares? Keep going, live life. YOLO, right? Yeah, my love, YOLO is right here with my coffee and this Zoom call. I'm YOLOing as much as I need to right now. I also strongly encourage everyone, as I have done, to up your vitamin intake. I think that's something that, you know, for me, I wasn't previously a very big proponent of vitamins. I mean, I took my multivitamin, but that was pretty much it. Now I'm taking way too much vitamin C. I have a active immunity that I take. I have the all woman's full vitamin. I mean, I'm taking probably 6 or 7 quote unquote multivitamin type vitamins every single day. I just feel like it may be mental, I don't know, but I feel like it helps me deal with the coronavirus and quarantine and keeps me, I hope, healthy. I you know, I feel like I'm healthy. I don't know if I've ever had COVID because I never did get tested, or excuse me, coronavirus, because I never did get tested, but I do strongly feel that we need to continue to take our vitamins and probably take them more than we have in the past. Okay, the next question. How do you become or remain a servant leader in this country, knowing that you are the future of the country and your actions will determine the next generation during this COVID pandemic and social injustice? Wow, this question is perfect for me right now. Dr. Hightower mentioned that I serve as financial vice president of the Junior League of Houston. I actually stepped into my role around the timing of George Floyd's death. I don't know how many women know about the Junior League. It is a national organization. The Junior League, how many women have seen the movie The Help?
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie The Help, so you know what the Junior League is, and you know the perception of the Junior League, which is not just a perception, it's very much a reality. We are the minority when it comes to this organization. And I am the only woman of color that sits on our executive committee, and I'm the only Black woman that's on our board of directors this year. So that's a heck of a challenge with the social injustices that we're currently seeing, you know, and dealing with in a wide spectrum, because we as African American women have always been dealing with this social injustice. This is not new for us. It's new for the others, because now their eyes have been open, their ears are open, their hearts are open, hopefully, and they're paying attention to the things that we've been crying out for many, many years, forever, essentially. And I can say, being in this position where I have the opportunity to have this almost the complete attention of a group of white women, to be able to explain to them what it's like to be an African American in the United States, in the city of Houston, what it's like to be a Black woman in an organization that is known to be and has the stereotype and truly withholds its stereotype of being almost a white sorority, essentially. But being an African American woman who has to balance that corporate Wendy with that sister soldier Wendy, and ensuring that I help to the best of my ability open their hearts and share with them our plight, you know, what it's like to be us, so that they can help make changes not only within our organization, but within their communities, and expand it with, you know, continue to expand it outside of their own communities. Because I'm a strong proponent of God puts you in the right place at the right time. God gives you these titles, these positions, these things for a reason. So sitting in that room, I try my best to constantly advocate and share, because I want them to go out and be the voice for me. Because when they're in their all white environments and we're not there to speak on behalf of Black people, what are they going to say? You know, what inputs do they have? So I encourage us all to continue to do that when we have those opportunities. My husband gets mad at me because I don't have a good no factor. Like, I don't know how to say no. When I get the call from the rodeo and they ask me to sit on this committee, I don't say no. When I get the call to be, you know, a part of this, I don't say no. And for me, I don't say no because I am usually the only woman of color, the only Black woman in the room. First of all, the only woman in a lot of these organizations, especially when it comes to the rodeo, but then the only Black person in the room, or the only Black woman in the room. You can't say no to that. And that's what I encourage you guys to do. I know it's hard. I know we've already talked about the Superwoman complex and all the many things that we have going on in our lives. But if you get that opportunity to be the only Black in the room or the only Black woman in the room, take it. Because that is your chance, that God is putting you in the position to be able to be an advocate and to do things that you don't even know you're going to be able to do. I accepted this position last September, October, almost a year ago. It was pre-George Floyd. I didn't know I was going to be in this position to have to sit here and advocate for the African American plight and try to educate white women on what it's like to be Black in America. But that's where I am. And it's only because of God's grace. God allowed me to have that opportunity. So let me see. Sorry, I have notes, but then I started rambling. So please forgive me, ladies.
Oh, no, that's it.
I think one of the things I wanted to make sure that I said, and I have it right here in bold red, that this virus and this quarantine has done something for many of us. Not just has it allowed us to see the realities of life and the social injustices, it's also allowed us to stop. It's allowed us to stop our constant go, go, go mode, and to really be able to see each other, see people, see you, see Kizzy, see Dr. Hightower, see Miss Dunn, to see us as individual people. And for me, I think that gives us the opportunity to give grace. Because in the past, we'd be like, well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of my name on here. Your name's not Dreams. I'm sorry, I know. What's your name? So I can say your actual name. That's your mama's name, right?
Jayla.
So Jayla didn't turn in this report on time. Jayla should have had it to me 2 days ago. Pre-quarantine, that would be the mindset. What's going on with Jayla? Why she didn't get it to me on time? Post-quarantine, we have started to say, you know what? We don't know what Jayla has going on. Jayla might be swamped right now. Jayla might be busy right now. So we're allowing for each other to give grace to each other. But not only that, give grace to yourself.
Yes.
That you say, you know what, I didn't get that report done today, but that's okay, I'm gonna get it done tomorrow. You know, don't put it off for another 3 or 4 weeks for sure, but don't be so hard on yourself and on each other. That to me was the biggest thing I wanted to share today, is to give grace to each other, to ourselves. So sorry if that didn't really flow in the way that in my mind I thought it would, but those are the things that I felt were most important to share as a millennial.
No, you did great. And I like the part of you saying giving grace, because through this, you know, we don't know what each other are going through. And like even before I started this, like I said, a lot of women hold things in. And so that was right on target. I like also what you said about the vitamin, because I heard Dr. Fauci say the other day to take vitamin C and D. So, you know, we should be mindful of that. So with that said, Deborah, do we have any questions for them, the panel? I know Dr. Sapp had to leave early, so I can email her questions if she had some.
No, I think that most of the information in the chat is kudos to everyone, compliments, thank yous. I know I'm going to get some more vitamins. I'm going to buy Shonda Rhimes' book today. And Wendy, we went to school with your mom, and it's just so proud of you.
Yeah.
Vice president, your work with the rodeo. It's so rewarding to see Jack Yates products.
Yes, I am a product of the Greater Third Ward area. Yes, I am. And I love my Jack Yates people. My mom wouldn't have let me go to Yates, so she would let me go to Yates. It changed drastically from the time she was at Yates to the time I would have been at Yates.
No, you tell your mom, we know why she didn't let you go to Yates, because she had too much fun.
That's probably, yeah, my mom tried to write a different path for me. But thank you, ladies, for allowing all of us to be. I mean, I think it was such a, sorry, I didn't mean to come back on, but I just, my heart just had to say, such a beautiful group of women. I put it in the chat, but I feel the vibes of the group, and it feels so beautiful and warm. So, okay, I'm going back on mute now.
Well, I want to say, and the thing of it is that I did not know these ladies. I am a part of the Black Therapists, because I do have a master's in clinical mental health, but I never did get my license because that wasn't the route that God wanted me to be stuck inside an office somewhere, because I am a minister of the gospel of Christ. And so, but I went on that group, and I requested speakers, because this is what God told me to do, and I know it was God divine. And I had a whole lot of ladies that wanted to be on this panel, but God allowed me to choose these ladies here. And I believe everything is for divine appointment. And you guys were forever. And here's the blessing part of it, because I wanted to do this free. These ladies, and yourself, Wendy, you volunteered your service, and God is gonna really bless you for this. I'm just grateful and thankful, and you guys will forever be my friend. If you ever need me, I'll preach and teach for you somewhere. So, but if you ever need me, you know, I'm here, and I really want to thank you, ladies, for being a part of this panel. You got any questions yourself? Well, I've met some, and I've gotten some new friends, and I thank you guys for that. I mean, that's all I have to say, unless you guys have something else to say. No?
Always welcome to come to Baltimore.
Baltimore? Oh, look, I'm waiting for this COVID to be over, because I need a vacation. So, and I'm always in it. I'm concerned about Atlanta all the time, so I'm always in Georgia. But Baltimore, that's don't worry.
Dr. Hightower, I just want to say thank you, and thank you to all the presenters and guests. And on behalf of Dr. Hightower, we want you to enjoy this gift of time. We're finished about 30 minutes early. And just to say thank you, thank you. She's recording this, so it'll be available for all the tips and kudos to put on your resumes and everything else that you do. So we appreciate you and thank you.
I also want to thank the viewers who came, who tuned in. Some of them didn't show their faces, but Natasha, I see you. And then some other ones, they have gone off, but thank you guys. And y'all have a blessed day.
All right,
All
bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye. Let me see how to get out of here.